Hey everyone, and welcome. Let's dive right into today's explainer, shall we? Today, we are putting a magnifying glass on a single, super versatile word to see how it really takes from the inside out. Our word of the day is fracture, and I'm honestly so excited to unpack this one with you because, well, it's a word we hear all the time, but it actually has this incredibly fascinating backstory and a much wider range of uses than you might think.
All right, let's jump into section 1, the core meaning. So, to really wrap our heads around this, picture this scenario. You've got someone speeding down a hill on a bicycle and they take a really nasty spill. Or imagine a soccer player who trips and just goes down hard. In both of these pretty dramatic cases, we're not just talking about a sore arm or a twisted ankle, right? Something much more significant has happened underneath the surface. And that brings us to our formal definition. Fracture, pronounced fracture, by the way. The absolutely crucial thing to remember here is what we call the living core of the word. A fracture is a break or a crack in something that used to be whole. Before that bike crash, that bone was perfectly solid. Now, there's a physical break in it.
You know, sometimes the best way to understand a word is to look at what it isn't. So imagine a girl named Mia. If Mia bumps her arm on a door frame and it hurts for a bit, but the bone itself hasn't cracked, well, that's just a bruise. That's our non-example. It hurts, for sure, but it's not a fracture. But if a doctor takes an x-ray and sees a literal crack in the bone and puts a cast on Mia's arm, now that is a fracture. It strictly, absolutely requires a break in the whole.
Moving right along to section 2, anatomy of the word. Okay, so now that we've got the basic medical definition locked in, let's shift gears just a little bit. Because to truly master vocabulary, rote memorization is kind of boring, right? We want that deeper, logical understanding. We want to see how the word is actually built from the ground up. And like a lot of English words, fracture is basically built out of these ancient linguistic Lego blocks. Step 1 is the Latin root fract or frag, which literally means break. Step 2 is the Latin suffix "ur", meaning the act or process of. So you snap these two distinct pieces together and you quite literally get the act or process of breaking.
If we look at how the Wordsmyth Educational Dictionary breaks this down, it maps it out perfectly. Just look at that Latin root fract, or frag. Once you realize that root means break, you suddenly start seeing it everywhere. It logically connects to words you already use every day, like fragment. I mean, what is a fragment? It's just a broken off piece of something. It's like a giant puzzle, and it's all connected.
Which brings us to section 3, beyond broken bones.
So, we usually associate fracture with hospital waiting rooms and x-rays, right? Actually, scratch that. It applies to way more than just the medical field. Looking at the noun definitions here, definition 2 mentions the appearance of the surface of a mineral when it breaks. Or check out definition 3, a break, crack, or rupture. This just perfectly shows us that this concept applies to the natural world just as much as human bones. A thick sheet of ice on a winter pond, that can fracture. A massive boulder, it can fracture. The word works beautifully to describe any of these physical ruptures out in nature. But wait, it gets even more interesting when we look at the verb definitions. It works as a transitive or intransitive verb, like the ice began to fracture, or maybe a heavy truck caused the ice to fracture. But my absolute favorite is definition number 3 down there, the slang usage, to amuse deeply. As in, wow, that joke really fractured me. It's basically an old school way of saying a joke cracked you up. I just love how language makes that leap, going from a literal broken bone to just busting a gut laughing. To wrap up this part, let's look at some common combinations you'll run into. Up top, we have the standard medical terms: bone fracture, hairline fracture, stress fracture, skull fracture. But check out that very last one, a fractured relationship. This is a real game changer because it perfectly illustrates how a physical concept becomes totally abstract. Even when nothing physical is physically snapped in half, if trust breaks down between two people, their relationship can fracture. The whole has been broken. All right, time for section 4. Put it to the test. Let's do a quick little pop quiz to test our retention here. Out of these options, which situation best shows a fracture? Is it A, a pencil rolls off a desk, B, a bone cracks after a hard fall, or C, a student forgets her homework? I'll give you just a second to lock your answer in. Okay, if you guessed B, you hit the nail on the head. A bone that cracks after a hard fall. I mean, a pencil rolling off a desk, that's just gravity. Forgetting your homework, that's just a bummer was a mistake. But a bone cracking after a bad fall perfectly aligns with our living core definition. It is a clear break in something that used to be completely whole.
Let's try one more quick mental workout to really lock this into your brain. Finish this sentence for me. The doctor checked for a fracture because. Take a second right now and just complete that thought in your head based on everything we've covered today. Maybe you're thinking because the soccer player felt a sharp pain in her ankle, or because the cyclist took a massive hit to his arm.
So at the end of the day, what's the big takeaway from this explainer? The fundamental truth is simply this. A fracture is a break in something that was whole, period. Whether we're talking about a human bone, a piece of granite, a frozen lake, or even a tight friendship. Which actually leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to ponder. When a physical bone fractures, a doctor can set it in a cast and it heals. But when trust fractures, how do you actually rebuild that? Definitely something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore the anatomy of this word. Catch you next time.